Hello and welcome to how to use index match match. In this video, we'll go through the process of building the index match match formula for two different use cases. One, to fill a column vertically with data. The other, to fill columns vertically and horizontally for an entire data set. So what we have laid out here is a source worksheet on the left side with all of our source data. We have a destination worksheet on the right side. So this is the same as if we had two separate worksheets, but I've placed these together on the same sheet so that it's easier to see what our lookup ranges are and our lookup values and how everything works together. But just treat these as if they were two entirely different worksheets. All right, so what do we have for our data here? So our source worksheet has a common player ID column and column names across the column headings. Our destination worksheet also has the player ID common key, but you'll notice that they are in a different order than they are in the source sheet, which makes absolutely no difference to index match. We also have column names listed here vertically, which are the same column names from our source worksheet. These will be used as the second lookup for our vertical data that we're going to populate. Then for our other data set, we have the player ID again, and then we have our column names listed across the top as if we're going to fill out this entire data set, which we will do when we complete the second formula. So these two formulas will essentially be the same with just some minor differences for the second version where we used mixed references to handle the fact that we're dragging the formula horizontally and then vertically to fill out the entire data set when we finish that. Okay, let's get rolling. So we'll start with our index, and we're going to index for our array or for our reference. We're just going to index our data, not the player ID reference column and not the column headings. But we don't want that reference area to move because we're going to drag this formula down. So we want this to stay locked in place. So we use F4, function 4, to lock our range in place with absolute references. Okay, comma to move to our next argument, which is our row number. Well, we don't know the row number, so this is where we use our first match. All right, so we start our first match, and our first argument is lookup value. So what are we going to look up for this match? Well, we're going to use our player ID right here. We don't have to do anything special with that because we're just dragging this down and all of the player IDs are already vertically arranged in the same column. So, comma, go to our next argument. Now it's the lookup array. Where are we going to look for these player IDs? Well, we're going to look for them over here in our source data in this column. But again, because we're filling the formula down, we don't want this array reference to move. So we're going to hit F4 again to lock that in place, comma. What is the match type? Well, we want an exact match, which is 0. We almost always want an exact match for this formula. There are cases where you don't, but it's a good rule of thumb, just go with exact match. All right, so 0 for exact match, close parentheses to close that first match function. You notice that we are still in the index function now. Now, as I add the next comma, we're going to shift from the row number to the column number. So now index needs a column number. Well, again, we don't know what that is for sure, so we're going to use our second match for the column number. And what are we going to use for our lookup value? For our column number, well, we're going to use the column name. All right, and again, because all of these are arranged in the same column vertically, we don't have to do anything special with the lookup value reference. All right, so our our lookup value will be column names, okay, comma to move to our next argument, which is our lookup array. Where are we going to look for these column names? Well, we're going to use a horizontal range in this case, right? Because this is where the column names are located in the source data. Okay, so we're going to have it, we're going to have the formula look across that range instead of down. Okay, so again, horizontal reference here, but as is the case with the other lookup range, we're going to be filling this formula downward. We do not want this range to be shifting down with the formula, so we lock it in place again with function F4, comma. Now we move on to our match type, and again, exact match 0, close parenthesis to close the second match, another parenthesis to close the index function, and we have our formula. And there's our first result, which is Peter. So for player ID 3883, first name should be Peter. 3883, first name Peter. Okay, that looks good. Let's go ahead and drag this down, and we get our results. So we can check a couple others. Let's see. 2455, first name Gabriel. Okay, 2455, first name Gabriel. 2452, total USD prize, 96K. 96K changed 0.39. Yeah, there it is. Okay, perfect. So everything works exactly as we had hoped. And if we look at this, we can see our player ID lookup value is going to be looking in this vertical reference here. Our column heading lookup value will be looking in this range up here. And our index is just indexing the data itself. And that is a working index match formula. Okay, now we'll do the same thing, but this time a slight twist. We're going to write one formula. We're going to drag it horizontally across all the columns and then drag it down across all the rows. But we only have to write one formula, and that's the beauty of this. All right, so again, index to start, index array that we're going to use. We're going to use the array of the data again, and as before, we do not want this range reference or array to move, so we're going to lock it in place with function key F4, comma. Now we move on to our row number. Well, again, we want the row number to be automated, so we're going to use our match function again. For our row, we're going to, for the row, our first argument is the lookup value. So what are we going to look up? We're going to use our player ID again. Now, this is where the twist comes in. Since we're going to drag this formula horizontally and vertically, we need to give this what's called a mixed reference. Okay, our player IDs are all located in column P. So we want to lock the reference to column P. All right, so we'll add the $ in front of just the column. And this will leave the row reference free, so it can change as we drag the formula down. All right, next we'll add comma for our next argument. Now, where is the lookup array? Where are we going to look up this player ID? Well, it's the same array that we used in the first match, and that is, in the first index match formula. So again, it's our player ID column over here, and as before, we want this locked. We do not want that changing as we drag the formula down or across, so we lock it in place. Comma, we move to our next argument. Match type, we want exact match as always, so 0, parenthesis, close that match, comma. Now we're back to index reference again, and now it's looking for column number. So again, we want the column number to be automated in this case, so our second match. Okay, so for this one, lookup value for the second match. Thank you, Excel. Our lookup value for the second match is going to be the column heading here. All right, so imagine this is a worksheet that you have and you want to populate all this data. You use the column headings here as your lookup value for the second match. So like with our first lookup value, we need to lock this one with a mixed reference because we're going to be dragging the formula across and down. So where are our headers? Our lookup, our header names, they're all located in the same row, but different columns. So in this case, we're going to lock the, oops, nope, we're not going to go P2. We're going to lock the row. We're going to lock the row. Hello, let's get, there we go. We're going to lock the row instead of the column, right? So look at our lookup value over here for the player ID. We locked the column, okay, because we're going to go down the same column, but not the row. But our lookup value for the column names, we're going to lock the row and not the column because we want to drag it across the columns. Okay. Comma, next argument, where are we going to look for the column headings? Well, we're going to look for them right here, just as we did before. Again, this horizontal range, we're going to press F4 to lock that range in place because we don't want it to move when we're dragging our formula. Comma, to move to our next argument, what is our match type? We want 0 again for exact match, close parenthesis to close the second match, close parenthesis to close index, and we're done. And once again, we have Peter. So that's a good start. All right, so when it comes to filling this, you want to fill horizontally first, like so, and then you can fill vertically, and you'll fill all the columns at the same time. We could autofill this, but I'll drag it. Okay, so there we go. Boom. So this is pretty cool because we've just filled an entire data set with one formula, all right, just by virtue of using mixed references and, of course, the power of index match match. Okay, so we can go through and check any of these. So here's player 12183, current handle taco. All right, 12183, current handle taco. Okay, yeah, so I think we're all dialed here. Now, just to comment about index match match versus VLOOKUP. VLOOKUP is easier to use, certainly. However, it has limitations. Number one, it can't do vertical and horizontal lookup at the same time, which is what we're doing here. Secondly, the only reference that it can use, the only lookup reference that you can use with VLOOKUP has to be in the leftmost column of the data set. So we could literally move this column over here and have it in the middle of the data, and index match match would still work perfectly. It wouldn't bother it in the least. If we did this with a VLOOKUP setup and moved our reference column from the leftmost column into the middle of the data, it would break the VLOOKUP formula. So index match match, a little bit tougher to use, but much more powerful, much more flexible. So this is it. I hope this was helpful, and best of luck.